and outside the student movement as well. So we want, like the panel, as we can see, young and old, to tell us the experience and how we can engage students in dealing with the issues at hand. We all see and hear what's happening at the minute, and we want to do our best and start fighting now. The time is now. So I'll ask maybe from Sophie, is it? Vicky, okay. Vicky to maybe start, give a little bit of background and information to the house, and as they speak about the issues at hand.
Maybe I suggest the subject was global crisis, global solidarity.
Yes.
Maybe we should start with a little comment about how many people went to the Trump demo and what their experiences were and what they make of that, because that frames where we're going.
Okay. So, yeah. So are you happy with that to start?
Yes, I did not participate in any protests. For the past few days, my daughter back in the States has been highly upset with me. We've been going at it. We have different perspectives on what's happening. I understand her perspective completely, but the problem that we really face is globalization. We have this group called the Illuminati. They want to control all the banks. And you probably know some of the names, the Rockefellers, etc. Some of these wars that have gone under, that are tearing up the Middle East, is because the Illuminati had not been able to gain control of those banks. And yet they fund both sides of the war. So when I talk about you have to really understand what's happening in the system, that's where it's rooted. There's this move toward globalization. And when you had Brexit, that was a pushback against it, because they're wanting to design a system where the whole world falls under one elite group of people. And everything that the news gives to us is not really the truth. That's very surface. And you've got to really look below it. So when you go out there and you do protest, or you do take a stand, you really know what you're protesting. Not that you don't, but I'm just saying that it's a lot deeper than what the picture that you're being painted.
Okay. Thank you. Shimona?
Thank you. Hi, I'm feeling very fragile. I went to the demonstration in Edinburgh. It was really good. I disagree. I don't think the problem we're facing is globalization. The problem that we're facing is capitalism and all that's entwined with it. Sexism, racism, homophobia. I think the few at the top are very scared because the masses are mobilizing. I feel that they're trying their very hardest to break down avenues for solidarity. I feel I lost my train of thought. I feel like particularly in the West, it's very clear now with all of the issues of colonialism and imperialism is coming back to bite them. You see a rise in immigration, and they're becoming scared because now they have to deal with the legacies of what they've done. And there is, someone coined this, a white lash, and that's what's happening. White people are very angry, and I think that's the reason why we're having to deal with Trump. We're having to deal with people like him in Europe and across the Western world, and yeah.
Thank you. Talk about social injustice and maybe connect it to the Pan-African world.
Yeah, let me just say my name is Omowale. Warmest greetings, everybody. That's the first thing. Warmest greetings to everyone. My name is Omowale. I'm a member of the Pan-African Society Community Forum. And all I'll do in this section is just say a little something about what we are and what we stand for. But we stand for some things and against others. Let me start with the against. Yeah? We stand resolutely opposed to capitalism. We stand opposed to colonialism, to neocolonialism, to settler colonialism. We stand opposed to Zionism. You can see there are a lot of things that we are opposed to, and I suppose I could continue along this: institutional racism, etc., etc. So we have a certain class analysis to our politics, which means that we are opposed to sexism and racism also. We recognise that African women, for instance, suffer triple oppression. They're oppressed because they're part of the African people of the world who are oppressed by the capitalist system. On top of that, they are oppressed because African people are generally positioned amongst the poorest people in the world. And so in that class sense, we have that double oppression, African people and African women. And then African women have another leg of oppression that we as African men don't have. They're oppressed because they are women, and the system organises an extra degree of oppression for African women, and we, the African men, are actually a part of that problem also. So just a sense of some of the things that we are against. We are for the unification and liberation of Africa under a just social system. So that's what we stand for. That just social system we regard as scientific socialism. That's what we stand for. We view that as our contribution to bringing justice to humanity for everyone in the world. So we have a particular interest. We're African people. We're oppressed on that basis. And we fight primarily on that front. But we recognize that we're our suffering, our oppression, is part of a broader global oppression. And for that reason, we're willing to engage in alliances with other oppressed people. So if you are working class here in Europe, we recognize that you suffer class oppression. We see scope for us to work together in common areas. Our focus is on Africa, but we see scope for us to work together, support and help each other. And so in that sense, when we fight the oppression that we're confronted with, we're happy to engage with other people who are not African people, who are also oppressed and who are also fighting the same imperialist enemy. I didn't mention anti-imperialist actually, did I? Yeah, we are anti-imperialist. So that's, I'm just saying that as a general overview as to what it is that the Pan-African Society Community Forum stands for. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Graham, you were at the demonstration?
I wasn't, but I passed it.
Okay,
But,
so maybe you can give us a brief introduction. And Graham has been involved a lot into these community issues, especially organizing the African Caribbean Center, and also helping to organize Africans and African Caribbeans around Scotland. Got involved a lot into racism and anti-racism campaigns and stuff like that. So, Graham, over to you, please.
Okay, I will try and keep in the spirit of brevity. As I'm Graham Campbell, I'm a member of the Scottish National Party's B&B community and the trade union group, and I can speak from a point of view as an independence campaigner. I suppose what we need to start with is, where is global capitalism going and what's our location within it? The Trump demonstrations tell us something obvious, that the crisis of neoliberalism as a global system is actually partly a crisis of the main power in the world, the United States of America, experiencing the death pangs of its predominance within that system. Capitalist globalization has basically allowed other powers and other forces to come to the fore. And actually, it reminds you of the early 20th century, actually, when Britain was being eclipsed by other powers. That tension between those countries on the trade war, political influence, which sides they support in civil wars in countries like Syria, these are all symptoms of the battle for control of the planet and of the people of this planet. And obviously we're reacting to events in the sense of reacting to the way globalization and neoliberalism, that form of capitalism that we have, I prefer to call it racist, capitalist, sexist patriarchy. That's what that system is. But it's a system that's multifaceted and multi-layered, which requires us to tackle it in all sorts of ways. And one of the things that we need to learn from the past, which I think Bob's discussion there is extremely important, that we learn from the mistakes. And some of the mistakes was that we didn't properly intersect the popular struggles against oppression. In other words, the feminist movement failed to take a class stand in defense of black women and minority women in the United States, and that translates to Europe too. The black movement failed to allow women and lesbians and gays and bisexual and transgender people to be equal within that movement, even though they were founders of the civil rights movements that we're talking about. None of them took place without lesbian and gay men taking leading roles, often behind the scenes unrecognized. You couldn't talk about the civil rights movement in the States without Bayard Rustin, even though he turned into a ridiculous right-wing cold warrior at the end of his life. But nonetheless, he played a major role right in the center of King's movement. So there's the unacknowledged fact of how movements of the oppressed and working class people in history emerge and how what forces they bring forward. All of our struggles have always been intersectional and class. And that is the solution to any social movement we have going forward. We have to understand that. And therefore, when we're on demonstrations like there were, I mean, this was unprecedented to see 4,000 people reacting to the election of American president in Edinburgh. And they had a bigger demo in Edinburgh for once than we had in Glasgow. So something's going on, that this is reacting. Something's happening in the world. Now, yes, there is a response to that globalization crisis. We've been in one since 2008. The way that millions of people have been impoverished by that over the last decade. People haven't recovered from that. The rich have recovered very well. The capitalist class internationally has recovered very well. Even our African dictators in various countries have recovered very well. But we haven't. In fact, there's still a recession for black people in America. There's still a recession for the poorest people in Europe, of which many of them live in this city. So the reality is that neoliberal capitalism cannot deliver, cannot provide employment, cannot feed the planet, not without the rapacious nature of the ruling classes everywhere, and the bankers everywhere. They get bailouts, we don't. That's what people are reacting to. Now, on the right-wing way, you can react to that by blaming your neighbour, blaming the foreigner, blaming the migrant, and we've had the politics of that dominate what the discussion of Brexit is. And Brexit, of course, has brought about a crisis within the British ruling class, but it's also brought about a crisis within the European project and within the ruling class as a whole. And we, as minorities within that, are having to react to social events that we're not in control of. And the question is, how do we get back control? How do we create social movements and ground-up movements that allow us as people to take back control of what we're doing? Now, I'm obviously a member of an electoral party, a party that advocates independence for Scotland. I advocate independence for Scotland because I believe that's the best way to break up the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom needs to be broken up because it's the last bastion of a colonial empire which shouldn't exist anymore. It still does. And the fact that it still does is a factor in global politics, as you see with Theresa May shaking the hand, indeed shaking whatever else, of Donald Trump this last week. The fact is that Britain's existence allows America to have this legitimacy as a junior party, to pretend that it's an internationalist force, whereas Trump, you give him his benefit, Trump talks the truth. He is what he says he is. You know what you're getting. America first, American domination, capitalist domination, imperialism and war. That's what you're going to get with him. It's now just very naked instead of hidden in democratic, fatuous language. So we have to struggle for a kind of country in Scotland today. What kind of country do we want to be in, and what kind of world do we want it to be in? Scotland needs to be on the right side, and therefore the way it treats its citizens, people like Shepherd Wire, the victims of injustice within this country, need to be found justice for. Our system cannot be post-independence, that kind of a system, which carries on the British colonial tradition. Scotland's going to have to come and acknowledge its past, acknowledge its colonial past, but also it's got to acknowledge its anti-imperialist, pro-freedom future. And that's what I hope as an activist that happens. So that's my plan.
Anti-imperialist under the SNP.
Sorry?
Anti-imperialist under the SNP.
How do you mean, sorry?
You're talking like you're such a radical game. You talk such a radical game, but you're literally an SNP. They covered up the death of Shepherd Wire. They supported this.
Well, actually, no, that's not the case. Well, if you're going to shout me down, start with some facts. You will perhaps know, maybe Dominic sitting next to you will know, that I was in the campaign for Shepherd Wire from the first day. So I'm the one who helped that family.
Can I just come in here? Can I just ask?
I was the one who helped that family.
Please, let's respect the crowd. Okay?
I was also the one.
Let's wait for the question time. If you have anything to say, then you can say it at that time. Please, please. Let's respect everyone else in the house.
Everybody has their truth, and you have your version, I have mine.
No,
This is not the place to be doing this. No, no. We need to have a serious discussion about where we're at, and that is not very serious. That behaviour is not serious.
What about the SNP's position on NATO then?
As you might be aware, I mean, it's a fair question.
Yeah.
I was at the conference actually when that happened. I actually wasn't a member at that time, so I witnessed the issues on the conference floor and the massive opposition there was to it. It was very close. It actually only passed by 30 votes, and quite a few people weren't in the room at the time, so it could have been lost. I mean, it could have been, I've no doubt, vast majority of SNP members and activists are opposed to the stance we take on NATO, and I would say that I will vote to reverse it when the time comes. But I don't think that tactically it was designed to pass a hurdle within the referendum campaign. Mistaken in my view, but that's where we're at with that. But I don't think that's the most important question. The most important question is what kind of foreign policy is Scotland going to have as a country? If it decides that, and it decides it's going to be progressive and not imperialist and not sending troops into wars that Donald Trump might want us to, then it precludes being in the NATO alliance. That's the logic from my point of view.
Thank you. Can I just remind everyone that we're currently asking the panel to introduce themselves and whatever they want to talk about. So let's allow them whilst they're speaking. Let's respect the table, please. There will be time for questions and answers, and then you can say whatever you want to say there. Please. Thank you. So can I have Sophie, yeah. Sophie.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's been an impromptu invitation, self-imposed. I think as young people, if we're going to create the change that will bring about the rehumanization of all our oppressed communities, we have to interrupt the way systems have been designed and to say, no, we disagree with the ideology that the system is inevitable. It's crushed through time, it's crushed through communities, cannot be helped. No, that's not it. Every system is created by human beings, and with every generation, these fights to dismantle these systems can be undertaken by the very same new blood that can dismantle these systems. So we cannot say, for instance, it's too huge, it's too great, it's too powerful. No, these are human creations, and human beings have the capability of being intelligent and able to go beyond the limitations that have been placed upon them, whether it's through economic forces, political forces, or social forces, or even mere environmental forces. forces. So I just want to say, thank